Nacogdoches, which is in East Texas when I was called to ministry. So my ministry was in East Texas. And every new church I went to, it took some folks about 2 or 3 weeks to get used to my South Texas accent. I can imagine for you Virginians, for a Texan, that's a big difference. All right, let's bow our heads together in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we come before you in humility and amazement. We never get over the wonder that you actually listen to us. You who are the God of the universe, hear us when we pray. And not only do you hear us, but you answer us. Wonder of wonders. And so as we come before you, we come lifting up those who are in our hearts, family, friends, members of the church, people that we know that are going through difficult times, tribulations, difficulties. You know them better than we do. You know their needs better than we know them. And you know the solutions. And so we're simply asking that you take care of it. We ask that you will open our eyes to see what you're doing in their lives and in ours as well as we go through difficulties. And let us see how your wisdom and your love is fulfilled as you take care of your children. It's a wonderful thing to know that all is well because our God is watching over us and caring for us. On this 4th of July week, we come before you especially and give you thanks for our nation. We're grateful for the role that we have played in the world, how we have made a big difference. So we've transformed the world because you have used us to teach the dignity of every human being to the world, to teach loving neighbors to the world, to teach that peace is the way in almost every situation, and that cooperation as we work together with the people of the world is the way forward into the future. Continue to use us and use the ideas and principles that we were founded upon to help the world move forward and be a better world. We ask your blessings on all who are traveling this week. We ask your blessings on this church as it continues to serve you in this community to do those things which help make Strasburg a better community. And we ask your blessings on each of us as we seek to serve you. In the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who has taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right. I walked off and left. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Now we're going to turn to the scripture reading, which is Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. This is one of the better known scriptures in the Old Testament. And in fact, it's one of the few scriptures that's been made into a hit song by the Byrds back in the 60s. Anybody remember that? Yeah. It was a great, great song, and it's a great scripture. And because there's so much wisdom in it. So, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What gain have the workers from their toil? I have seen the business that God has given to everyone to be busy with. He has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, he has put a sense of past and future into their minds, yet they cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, it is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. I know that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken from it. God has done this so that all should stand in awe before him. That which is already has been. That which is to be already is. And God seeks out what has gone by. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. I want to begin by thanking you once again for the support that you have given me in these past several months. Your prayers have made a big difference. I've been prayed for by many people in my churches that I've served over the years, but the churches here in Strasburg, this church, and my daughter's, the two churches my daughter was serving, those prayers, well, it just helps when people look you in the eye and say, I'm praying for you. And so I really, really appreciate it. And it did make the difference. It really did. When you know that people care about you, then it makes a difference to somebody else what's happening to you. It just gives you an extra strength. It does. And to know that God is hearing those prayers and answering them. Let me just quickly run through what I went through. Most of you know, but there's a lot of details that people are fuzzy on. Back in January of 2018, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer. I went to the doctor. They began treatment. They said, "No, what you really need is a stem cell transplant." I'd vaguely heard stem cell transplants. I'd vaguely heard of multiple myeloma. I had no idea what it was really until I got it. But they said, "You need a stem cell transplant." And so I began working towards that. My original plan was to go to MD Anderson in Houston, which is a couple hours drive from where we live, and have that done there. But Kathleen wanted to be with me during that time, and I thank God she was. She was a tremendous help. But she said, "Daddy, you know, if I come down and help you in Houston, I'll be gone from my church and my family for a couple of months." She says, "Could you come to Virginia to have that done?" I said, "Well, I don't know." She says, "University of Virginia in Charlottesville has a good program." I said, "Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. You know, I'm going to go to this foreign land to have this work done." So we went to University of Virginia. I walked in to see the transplant doctor, and she says, "Why are you here?" I said, "Because I want a stem cell transplant." She says, "I don't know you, madam, but and you don't look like you're prepared for a stem cell transplant." You know, she says, "As weak as you are, I'm not sure you'd survive it." And she says, I said, "Well, that's what I want." And so she put me in the program, and they began to work with me and got me strengthened. And in January of this year, a year after I was diagnosed, I was finally to the point where I was ready to have a stem cell transplant. They called me and said, "You're ready. You want to do this this week or next week?" I said, "This week." And let's not put this off. I'm way along. And so on January 24th, I had a stem cell transplant. Now, stem cell transplant, I had what's called an autologous stem cell transplant, which means they use my own stem cells. They put me on a machine for 2 days, ran all my blood through this machine, and filtered out the stem cells out of my blood. Stem cells are just those cells that they're immature cells that can become whatever cells you need. They grow into red blood cells or white blood cells, or there's about 1,000 different kinds of cells you have in your blood. So they took the stem cells out, and then they gave me a massive dose of chemotherapy, which killed all the cancers in my blood and everything else too. And then they reinfused me with my stem cells. So as my red blood cells and white blood cells and all the others were dying out, the stem cells were transforming to replace them. It was a pretty arduous experience, let me tell you. They told me going in that I had an 85% chance of surviving. And they said, you want to do that? And I said, yeah, I want to take, that's well worth the chance. Again, I didn't think that, I was 100% sure I was going to survive because God was going to take care of me. But at one point, for 2 days, I was so weak I couldn't open my eyes. And it was a near-death experience, let me tell you, it was. But it went well when the stem cells took hold. They really took hold. And one of the doctors came in to see me a day or two after seeing me, trying to talk to me and saying, Mr. Welborn, you got to open your eyes. You got to look at me. And I'm going, I'm trying. And a day or two later, she came in and looked at me and said, are you the same person? I was back. And I was supposed to be in the hospital for 3 weeks at most. I was out in 12 days. And they were just all shocked. And everything went very quickly and very rapidly. The recovery's gone well. Last time I still have to go back for chemotherapy every 2 weeks, but it's a light dose of maintenance. Last time I went back, the nurse said, how are you doing today? And I thought about it and I said, I didn't think I'd ever feel this good again the rest of my life. That's how good I'm feeling. So it's prayers and God. So I'm grateful to you. And I'm also grateful that you're letting me live in the parsonage. I had a big decision to make when I was recovering from the stem cell transplant. And I realized I was going to recover. You don't make long-range plans before the stem cell transplant, other than making your will and that sort of thing. But after the stem cell transplant, when it was obvious that I was going to survive, I had to make a decision as to whether I was going to go back to Texas. My wife and I were going to go back to Texas. But the fact of the matter is that I still have multiple myeloma. It's not curable. It's controllable. It's not curable. And also, it attacked my heart, so that I have congestive heart failure. And the truth of the matter is that things could go south real quickly, any time. And it just didn't make sense for me to be back in rural East Texas with only my wife to take care of me. And she would have a difficult time doing that. And so Kathleen and John were saying, stay with us, stay with us. And I'm going, you really want us to stay with you? And they said, yeah, we do. And so I said, okay, we'll stay with you. So after 44 years in the parsonage, I thought I was through with that when I retired. I'm back in the parsonage, and I'm fine, and I'm happy to be there. And I thank you all for letting us be there. But that brings me to the topic of the sermon this morning. Back a few weeks ago, John said, I'm going to be on vacation. Would you be willing to preach for me on the Sunday that I'm on vacation? And anytime anybody's ever said to me, will you preach for me? My answer is, yes! I love preaching. I went to the ministry to preach. I discovered to my dismay that there's more to being a minister than preaching. But I've never grown tired of preaching. I love to preach. And so any opportunity I get to preach, I'll take it. And so I said yes, and then a few days later, John said, now let me tell you what you're going to preach about. Okay? We're going to do a summer series on the seasons of life. And I'll take one Sunday to do spring, and another Sunday to do summer, and then you do the fall and winter in one sermon. Wait a minute, that's not fair. I've got those 2 seasons in one sermon. How am I going to do that? And besides that, talk about the winter of life, but I know why John did that. All of a sudden, when I became sick, all of a sudden I became an old man. Between the cancer and the treatment, I went from being a fairly strong, very healthy, mature man to being an old man. And I've been struggling with that. You'd think a preacher who's watched people who are old all of his ministry, you'd think that I would know how to deal with being old. But let me tell you, one thing I've discovered about life is that you don't understand what people are going through until you've gone through it yourself. And being old is a different experience than I ever dreamed it would be. And I've been struggling with it, and I need to process it. And John gave me this assignment to force me to process what it means to be old, to be in the winter of life. And I'm glad he did, because it's been a good experience. I'm going to be able to deal with the reality of being old much more positively as a result of this sermon this morning. So anyway, the 4 seasons of life. I'm going to look at all 4 seasons briefly from 2 perspectives. One is from the perspective of the flesh, and one is from the perspective of the spirit. We are both. There are those folks who say, no, look at all life from the spirit. Always look at things spiritually. Well, I hate to tell you this, but I'm flesh. We're amphibians. We're both flesh and spirit. And if you don't pay attention to both sides of that, something's going to suffer. So you need to be aware of your fleshly needs as well as your spiritual. See the flesh and see the spirit. First of all, let's look at the seasons of life from the perspective of the flesh. And the seasons of life, the thing that makes a season different from another season is how we answer 2 questions. The first question is, who's taking care of whom? The second question is, and who's telling whom to do what? In the spring of life, when you're children, who's taking care of whom? Any guesses? You know who's taking care of whom. The parents are taking care of the children. When you're a child, your parents take care of you. And who's telling whom to do what? The parents are telling the children what to do. And that's the way it should be. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's the way it should be. How do you know when you've entered the spring of life and you become a young adult? Well, who's taking care of whom? At some point, the answer is, it's time for me to take care of myself. I'm grown up now. It's time for me to take care of myself. And who's telling whom what to do? Well, you'd love for the answer to be, I'm just doing what I want to do. But what you discover as a young adult is that ain't the truth. You do have more freedom. When you get out on your own, you can do things that you don't have a curfew, and you can do things that you couldn't do under your parents' authority. But you discover that there's always somebody telling you what to do. There's a professor, or there's a boss. There's always somebody telling you what to do. But you know you have moved from being a child to being an adult, a young adult, when the answer to the question is, to the question, who's taking care of whom, your answer is, it's time for me to take care of myself. When you move from from the spring of life into the fall of life, when the answer to the question is, who's taking care of whom, the answer becomes, I'm taking care of people. It's my turn to be responsible. I'm no longer a young, carefree adult. I'm now a mature adult, and I've got people to take care of. You get married, you have responsibility for your spouse. You have children, it's time to take care of those children. You move up at your work, you gain positions of authority. It's time for you to take care of those who are under your charge. You get positions of leadership in the church, the community, and you accept those positions because you want to take care of the people in the church and take care of the people in the community. One day you wake up and you discover you're having to take care of your parents or your in-laws. Responsibility. And you can tell when someone's become a mature adult when their life is dedicated to take care of other people. Now, who's telling whom what to do? That's the good news. With responsibility comes authority. I can tell my kids what to do. As long as they're in my home. I can go to work and I can order people around. I can give orders. If I go to church and there's a decision to be made, I'm a part of the decision making. If I'm a leader in the community, I have an effect on decisions made in that community. And that's a nice feeling. You become somebody when you're in the fall of life, and you lose some things. You've lost some of the energy and the stamina that you had when you were young. But that's all right, because you discover that when you were young, you wasted a lot of energy. You did things you didn't need to do, and you did things the hard way. My daddy had a saying that the young man works with his back and the old man works with his head. And you learn how to work with your head, and you also learn how to delegate and get others to do the things that you don't have the energy to do anymore. Now, you move into the winter of life. And how do you know when you moved into the winter of life? Well, the question is, who's taking care of whom? And the answer is, they're taking care of me. I can't take care of myself anymore. Not like I used to. I'm not a free and independent adult anymore. People are taking care of me, and if they don't take care of me, I'm in trouble. And who's telling whom what to do? Well, my daughter's telling me what to do. And my doctors are telling me what to do. And so that's how I know that I'm old now. There was a man in my first church who was an older man, and he was fond of saying, once a man, twice a child. And I've seen the wisdom of that many times over, and I'm not experiencing that. I'm going through my second childhood as I become an old man, and people are taking care of me and making decisions for me. And so those are the seasons of life. Now, how do you deal with all that? And what I have found is I've gone through life, and now I've gone through all the seasons of life, and into the fourth one. What I've discovered is that the secret is to, as you move from one stage of life to the next, transition always involves loss, but it also involves gain. And what you need to do is mourn the loss for a short time. Recognize what you've lost, grieve over it, and then move on to the good things that you gained. What's the first thing a baby does when it comes into the world? It cries. This babies are smart. You know, that's exactly what it should do. Why does a baby cry? Well, of course, the birth process is pretty traumatic. It's traumatic for the mama. It's traumatic for the baby. And nowadays, it's even not traumatic for the parent, for the father. When Kathleen was born, they wouldn't let me in the delivery room, thank God. When Jonathan was born, they said, Daddy, you need to come in here and be with your wife while she's delivering this baby. That was the last baby we ever had. I'm not going to go through that again. That's the closest I've ever come to passing out. But, so the baby's crying because it's gone through a traumatic experience. But I think at a very primal level, even a little baby knows that it's lost something. What's it lost? It's lost the womb. You know, I mean, think about it. Not a bad life, huh? You know, you're never hungry. You're never cold. Everything is always perfect. You don't even have to breathe. You don't even have to breathe. Everything's taken care of, and but there's a problem. The womb has its limitations. And it would be tragic for a baby to try to remain in the womb. So what does a baby gain when it comes into the world, when it leaves the womb behind? It gains the world. It gains room. It gains the opportunity to grow and become a person that it's meant to be. It gains the opportunity to look upon the face of his or her mother and see her love for him or for her. A whole new world opens up. It's a good thing. And it doesn't take a baby long to celebrate that. They know. They understand. And they learn the pleasures of life, and they celebrate it. And that's the key to every stage of life. When you move from being a child to being a young adult, you've lost something. You lose the family that was your safe place. They're there, but you're not. But it's never the same. You leave behind friends as you move out into the new world. All those friends you went to high school with, you leave them behind, and we grieve. Oh my goodness! When my daughter went off to college, she got a scholarship to Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York. And I'm in Texas. We have a saying, New York City. Those are fighting words. So we took her up there to New York. We flew up there. Each of us had our 3 bags of luggage, which were all hers. And we flew up there, and our plan, my wife and my plan, was to help her set up her dorm room. We drove up to the college, and they had a young lady standing there at the sidewalk to help Kathleen unload and to carry those things up to the dorm room. And Becky and I are standing there looking at them, and the young lady says, "Thank you for delivering your daughter, and you'll see her at the holidays. Goodbye."
Oh my gosh.
Oh, really? And we went back to the hotel where we were spending the night before our flight out the next day. We lay down in the bed and cried. All night long, we cried. That was a transition, and it was a transition. I would love to say that Kathleen cried. She didn't. She was so excited in this new adventure. She celebrated. Now later on, she did cry. It hit her. She was not home anymore, and that happens a lot. She got homesick, but there was something to celebrate there. She entered into a new life, and so you grieve the loss. You celebrate the gain. When you when you enter into the spring, into the fall of life, and you become a mature adult, you do lose things. You do lose strength and stamina, energy, independence, but you gain so much more. You gain status. You gain a family. You gain position. You gain so much. Well, okay, go through your little midlife crisis and grieve that you're no longer a young stallion, but celebrate that you become a mature adult. It's so much better. You're growing. You're becoming, and then you enter into the winter of life, and you grieve what you've left behind. You leave behind a lot of those positions of authority. You no longer have children to order around. They've grown up, and you leave the job. You retire from the job, and you leave friends behind at work. You lose your health, and that's really when you lose your health is when you become old. And I grieve that. I still do. I'll be honest. I was a health nut. I exercised every day. I ate right. My father died of a heart attack when he was 59, and I was absolutely determined that was not going to happen to me. And so I took good care of myself. And when they checked my heart, when they first diagnosed me, they said, "Well, your efficiency rate is 68%. That's top of the line. That's about as good as it gets." And I was not surprised. I had worked hard to keep my heart strong, and I was proud of the fact I could do 50 push-ups without even breaking a sweat. I was just a very healthy man. I played a lot of racquetball, played cardio. I did cardio kickboxing. I was healthy, and I walked an hour and a half after I retired every day. And in a matter of a few months, that was all gone. It was gone. Just to get up and get dressed was a major effort. I could not stand for more than 2 or 3 minutes, and I grieved losing all that. You lose there's things you lose when you grow old. But what have you gained? What have you gained? There's a lot you gain. The psalmist says, "Those who go forth with tears to sow shall reap the harvest with joy. And the winter of life is when you reap the harvest. That's when all the hard work that you did all those years comes home to be enjoyed. You see the rewards. What are the rewards? I got 2 great kids. Good, independent, strong kids, intelligent, and good parents. They're good parents. They gave me 5 grandchildren. And I can look at them and say, you know, I did good. I did well. I helped them become what they are. That's reaping the harvest. It's reaping the harvest. When word went out in our conference that I had cancer, I received hundreds of cards from people whom I had pastored and fellow pastors. And most every one of them said something about what the impact that my ministry had had on them. That's reaping the harvest. Boy, I had a good life. I did some great things. It's reaping the harvest. And there's also the fact that in the winter of life, you can take the foot off the accelerator. You can quit pushing. I pushed hard all my life long. In every way, I pushed hard. And I can't push hard anymore, and I don't want to push hard anymore, and I don't have to push hard anymore. And that's a joy. That's a joy. I guess it really hit home to me when I was working with my physical therapist, and she gave me a series of exercises to do, and she said, now, Mr. Welborn, don't overdo it. I said, what do you mean? She says, I know you. She says, you have been an exercise nut all your life, and if I don't tell you not to overdo it, you're going to overdo it. And she says, you're not doing yourself any good if you overdo it. When you're younger, it is true, no pain, no gain. But when you're your age, pain is not a good thing. It's time to quit hurting yourself. If it feels good, do it. When it stops feeling good, stop doing it. And I thought, hey, that's pretty good. I like that. You mean I don't have to push myself to the limit anymore? I don't have to just keep shoving and pushing and hurting. Yeah, I can sit back and relax and enjoy. I'm always worried about diabetes. There's a lot of diabetes in my family. And the truth of the matter is, the reason my father died at 59 was because of complications of diabetes. His heart attack was a result of diabetes. And so I have been very, very careful to eat right and to exercise to keep my blood sugar under control, because if I didn't, I would become diabetic, and I don't want to be diabetic. When I was in the hospital recovering from the stem cell transplant, they were bringing in food that had a lot of sugar. And the truth of the matter is that that's the only thing I could eat, because everything else tasted horrible. If it wasn't sweet, I couldn't eat it. And so I was just eating sweets right and left. And the doctor came in, and I said, I'm worried about my blood sugar. I think I'm doing bad things to myself. And he looked at me and said, don't worry about it. Diabetes is not what's going to kill you. And I thought, wait a minute. Diabetes is not going to kill me? I've arrived. I've gotten so old, I'm too old to die of diabetes. I can eat what I want to, and it doesn't have time to kill me. That was a pretty good thing. I celebrated. So, you know, there are things to celebrate. The Ecclesiastes tells us that you have to know what stage of life you're in, where you are, and do what's appropriate for where you are in your stage of life. What works as a child doesn't work when you get to be an adult. If as a young adult, your answer to the question is, who's going to take care of whom? And your answer is, my parents are going to take care of me. Something's seriously wrong. It's time for you to take care of yourself. If you're a mature adult and you're asked the question, who's going to take care of whom? And your answer is, I'm going to take care of myself. Something is seriously wrong. It's time for you to take care of other people. You're not growing up, and you're not going to have a full, complete life because you haven't learned the lessons of that stage of life. If you are in the winter of life and the question is asked of you, who's going to tell whom what to do? And your answer is, I'm going to tell others what to do. You're in serious trouble. That's not the time to be ordering people around. You're dependent on your caretakers, and if you're ordering them around, they ain't going to be there very long. It's time to let go. It's time to quit ordering others around. I had a lady in my church some years ago. I went by to see her. I knew she was struggling. I went by to see her. And I said, what's going on? She says, my children won't come see me. They just are neglecting me. And I don't know why. Well, I knew why. She had retired from the military. She was a master sergeant when she retired. And she continued to be a master sergeant her whole life long. And I knew that she was ordering her children around. And when your children become adults, they don't want to be ordered around by their parents. And they had tried to talk to her about it, and she didn't listen. And so they just said, I'm through with that. I'm not going to let you order me around anymore. You're making my life miserable. And they just pulled away. Her problem was that what worked when she was an adult, when she was in the fall of her life, was no longer working in the winter of her life. For everything there is a season and a time for a purpose under heaven. You got to know what season it is, what time it is, and what's appropriate for that season of life. So that's looking at life from the perspective of the flesh. And there's a lot to be learned from that. Let's very briefly looking at life from the perspective of the Spirit. What's the answer to the question? When you look at things spiritually, what's the answer to the question? Who's taking care of them? In every stage of life, the answer is the same. God is taking care of us. When you look at life in the presence of God, see the presence of God, you realize that God is always taking care of us. Sometimes God uses people to take care of us. Sometimes God uses us to take care of people. But it's always God taking care of us. And that's really, really important when you get to the winter of life. Because when you can no longer take care of yourself, if you don't know that God's going to take care of you, you're in trouble. But when you've seen that God is taking care of you through every stage of life, when you get to the winter of life, you can say, you know, God's done a good job taking care of me, and I'm not worried about what's going to happen to me now, because God's going to continue to take care of me. You don't get through nearly 70 years of life without going through trials and tribulations. And every time that I have faced something that was too big for me, God took care of me, got me through. And that continues to be true. And God does it sometimes in miraculous ways. When I was telling you that I had congestive heart failure, a few months after I started treatment for cancer, I went back again to have my heart tested. And they said, well, your heart is now operating at 35% efficiency. Went from 68% to 35% in a matter of a few months. The cancer had just attacked my heart. 35% means that you're an invalid. Anything you do is difficult and painful. Well, when they told me the stem cell transplant was coming up, I said, well, now what's that going to do for my heart? They said, nothing. The damage is done. All this will do is stop further damage. You will have that problem here on out. So, okay, well, I guess I'll try to learn to live with it. Well, a couple of weeks ago, about 6 or 8 weeks ago now, I went back to my cardiologist and he tested me again. And he came in and he says, your heart efficiency is 55%. I said, 55%? That's pretty good. He said, yeah, that's about normal for somebody your age. And I said, how'd that happen? He said, I don't know. Well, I know how it happened. God performed a miracle. And to answer all those prayers, God performed a miracle. And I'm celebrating. I can live a normal life for some years now. I can live a normal life because God took care of me. And God's going to take care of me. The second question, who's telling whom to do what? And the answer in every stage of life, spiritually, is the same. God's telling us what to do. And that's good news. That's not bad news, that's good news. Because what God tells us to do is wonderful. It's wonderful. I have had a wonderful life because when I was 12 years old, I went through confirmation. They asked me, will you give your life to Christ? I said yes, and I meant it. And since that time, I have lived for Christ. And Christ has led me to do the work of God, which is to share the love of God with my neighbors and to encourage them to follow Christ and do the same thing. And I can look back and say, you know, the world's a better place because I did what God told me to do. I had a purpose and a meaning for life. My life means something. It did something. And it still does. I'm retired from being a pastor, but I'm still serving Christ. And even in the winter of life, I continue to do what God has told me to do, what God's telling me to do. And I'm making a difference. And that's wonderful. That's what makes the life worth living right there. You know, when you look at the life from the perspective of the flesh, we're kind of like cannonballs. You go out with a bang, you start out with a bang, and you reach up and you keep going higher until gravity takes over. And the momentum begins to run out. Then you start sloping down and you go, until finally you just hit the ground with a thud. That's the flesh. The flesh is not meant to last forever. When the flesh comes to an end. But from a spiritual standpoint, spiritually we never die. We're like a rocket. First the rocket goes off, you reach another stage of life, a booster kicks in, and you go. You go on to the next stage of life, another booster, and then finally you reach that final stage of life, and that final booster goes off, and you leave gravity behind, and you get into the eternal heavens. Celebration. Good things are ahead. Life is before us. The psalmist wrote these words, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. That's a lot to celebrate at every stage of life. And that includes being old. Amen. Let's bow our heads together in prayer. We give you thanks, O Lord our God, for your faithfulness in every stage of life. We give you thanks that you always are there to take care of us. And we give you thanks that you're always there to guide us in your will and your purposes. And so we celebrate life because it's all a gift from you. Every stage is a gift from you. Amen. All right, this is the non-song. I'm not going to lead you with a song, especially not without somebody playing something. So if you'll stand, I'll say the benediction. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with you. The love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit remain in the Bible, be always and everywhere. Amen.